What's up, guys? My name's Cody, and this is another UFC betting breakdown. This time for UFC 282. We got the light heavyweight title. Kind of crazy how that all unfolded, but Jan Blachowicz taking on Magomed Ankalaev for the vacant 205 light heavyweight championship after Yuri Prochazna did have to vacate the belt. Also got the return of Paddy Pimblett, who did just get KO'd viciously by Ariel Helwani yesterday, but respects getting in there. Santiago Panzanibio fighting Alex Morono since Hobby Lawler had to pull out. Darren Till on the card. Bryce Mitchell, Ilya Toporia, my favorite fight on the card. Great card. Really looking forward to breaking it down. Last week, we did cash those two overs in the main event, but unfortunately, Dawkins lost that decision to Michael Johnson and Jack Hermanson. Whew, that was a crazy finish by Doldies. Hey, respect to him. Roman's looking like he's going to start being a serious problem in the division. But let's get into this card. Before we do, leave a like on the video, leave a comment, click subscribe, post notifications, turn them on. I do them every fight card and trying to bring more and more content to you guys. Appreciate you guys. Let's get into the first fight of the night. We got Cameron Simon taking on Steven Kozlo. And I'm not going to lie to y'all, these first three fights on the card, I'm going to go through pretty quick because y'all know my betting style at this point. I like to bet more towards the top of the card unless I see a big problem with the line. Just more reliable guys. But that being said, we got a minus 280 for this 21-year-old, almost 22-year-old Cameron Simon. And both these guys 6-0, obviously very green. Came in against Josh Wayne Kim, had that nice left hook knockout. Looked pretty solid, but obviously look at his competition: 0-2, 0-2, 4-3, 4-4, 8-7. Okay, you know. Steven Kozlo, a grappler, fights out of 10th Planet. Also hasn't fought anybody. 1-1, 6-8, 4-4, 2-7, 0-0, 0-2. You know, amateur fight. Fought like a couple guys with alright records, but you know, record. If you really get into their record, then they've also only fought Cam. So you know, neither guy has really had good competition. But they are undefeated. You know, can't take that away from them. Also got a dope nickname, Obi-Wan Shinobi the Pillow. Like, just pick one. Steven the Pillow Kozlo or Steven Obi-Wan Shinobi Kozlo. You just pick one. But poor Bruce Buffer. But you know, I think this is a fight where Simon, you know, I think he's the more well-rounded guy. He's only, you know, about to be 22, very young, obviously, and green. But, you know, I do feel like Kozlo, pretty one-dimensional, good jiu-jitsu, but, like, doesn't have great wrestling, doesn't have good striking. Don't know how well he can take a shot either. This is just a fight where I do feel like Simon's going to win, but too big of a favorite, one of the bigger favorites on the card. Too much for me, not going to pay the juice, but I will take Simon. I think knockouts on the table. Yeah, I'm going to take Cameron Simon to get the TKO knockout, but decision, you know, wouldn't really play a prop. I would just parlay him if you so choose to do, but you know, I'd rather not parlay a 21-year-old at over minus 300. But let's move into the next fight. We got Daniel De Silva taking on Vinces Salvador. Salvador, man, you know, both these guys, I mean, Daniel De Silva has been on a tough run, but I mean, I do feel like Salvador, you know, somebody who a lot of people probably don't know. I didn't know him until he came out of the Contender Series. Again, hasn't fought like the highest level, whoops, let me mute that, the highest level of competition, but, you know, I mean, he's looked pretty good. I think, you know, this should be a pretty fun fight, pretty exciting fight. Daniel De Silva doesn't know how to have a boring fight. He's 0-3 in the UFC, but I think he's getting another shot because his fights have been fun. They've all finished inside the distance, but you know, getting knee-barred in the first round by Francisco Figueiredo, bad Figgy, is tough. Getting knocked out in the first round by Victor Altamirano, who doesn't really finish anybody, is also tough. Definitely has a fun style, exciting, just goes after it, tries to take your head off. Is definitely very dangerous, but I do feel like Salvador is the more put-together fighter, the more defensively sound. You know, I mean, I do think it's going to be like a pretty hectic pace they're going to put on. I think somebody's getting finished. And I'm going to go with the guy who's more durable. I do feel like, could De Silva catch him in the first round? Yeah, I mean, his style is crazy. He could definitely catch him in that first, but he just slows down so much. So I'm going to go with the guy who I've seen on the tape fight, can keep the pace a little bit longer. I just got to go with Salvador. I'm going to take him by TKO in the first round. But, if it gets into the later rounds, I think it'll only get easier for him. Give me Salvador, TKO, first round. Let's move on to the third fight of the night. We got Eric Silva taking on TJ Brown. TJ Brown, the next fighter to be affected by that James Krause business. And I don't know if this is where he's training for this camp. I mean, obviously a very low-key fight camp, if so. But TJ Brown does have some potential. I mean, his wrestling's pretty solid. The problem is, man, sometimes he just doesn't do enough. And other times he does too much. He comes out in the first round, shoots 10 takedowns, and then gets tired and gets, and just completely falls off the table and either loses the next 2 rounds or gets choked. It seems like his fight IQ is not the greatest. Just makes a lot of mental mistakes in there. And I mean, obviously it's easy to say on the outside. I'm not underestimating that at all, but that's a skill that is learned over time, and he could get better there. But it does seem like he could take Eric Silva down, but can he take him down for 2 rounds, control him, not get finished? Eric Silva's explosive, man. He's dangerous. He's the more dangerous of the two. I mean, he hasn't really fought anybody. This is another guy. This is why these first 3 fights are so kind of crazy for me. Hasn't really fought anybody yet. I mean, he's finishing these green guys, but even the ones with better records, it's you look at who they're fighting, go down the rabbit hole, and it's lower level competition, but he is finishing these guys. I do think he's the more prolific finisher here, and I just don't love TJ Brown, how he's looked so far. I don't love the fact that he has to switch camps weeks before the fight. That is enough to side me on the Eric Silva side, so I'm going to take Eric Silva at even money. I'm going to take Eric Silva to win by submission. But, is there a world TJ Brown just takes him down and stays safe for 2 of the rounds? Definitely there is. But I'm going to go with the Eric Silva. Just a little bit less question marks for me. Let's move on to the next fight. This is a great fight. Billy Quarantillo taking on Alexander Hernandez. I'm a big fan of Billy Quarantillo. Alex Hernandez, I don't dislike him as much anymore. I think he's been humbled at this point enough. He was kind of the MMA community's. He was a villain there when he was talking shit about Cerrone and got humbled, but still took being humbled a couple more times. And Thiago Moises, Drew Dober, Renato Moicano. I mean, he's taken some beatings. And that last fight was not good, but Moicano is definitely a high-level fighter. So, I mean, maybe, he can bounce back here. I mean, but the thing is, I don't know. I mean, it seems like he kind of saw a good amount of this guy's issues. I mean, he's explosive. He's definitely dangerous in that first round, but he falls off the table. He slows down. The chin is a little suspect at this point. Now, he's lucky that Billy Quarantillo doesn't have the most power, but one thing about Billy is he doesn't slow down. He speeds up. His thing is he's not the strongest guy. He's not the most explosive or fast or a strong guy, but, he's got the cardio, and he's got the fight IQ, and, I do feel like Billy Quarantillo is the more put-together guy. His grappling's pretty solid. His striking's pretty solid. Much better cardio, much more durable. And I just feel like outside of that first round, he's going to completely take over. So I wouldn't blame you if you want to wait till after the first round, maybe try to live bet Quarantillo, especially considering, Hernandez, typically, that's going to be his best round. But, 165 isn't the worst number. I do think it's starting to move, or it's been moving a little bit. Let's see exactly where it's at. It's not too far. Minus 175, minus 170, minus 180. That's, I think that's a playable line. I know Billy does have his weaknesses, and he is coming off a loss as well, but I think he is the better, more put-together fighter. And I'm going to take Billy Quarantillo by decision. Definitely could get the late finish, but I'm going to take him by decision. Next up, we got Chris Curtis taking on Joaquin Buckley, former training partners, grudge match. Joaquin's been calling him out. Chris Curtis was on a win streak, so it didn't make sense. But after taking that last loss, Jack Hermanson, and I know he didn't like that Jack Hermanson was kind of evading, kind of circling away, running away, some would call it. But hey, I mean, he used his length, he used his volume, and he just kind of used the superior fight IQ. Chris Curtis just trying to run forward and just running into shots over and over. And you know, in this fight though, I think it's going to be a very different. I mean, Joaquin has been trying to use his wrestling in a lot of his fights lately, but at the end of the day, he mostly, you know, is just throwing bombs. And his durability is a little bit in question. I do feel like Chris Curtis could catch him and could knock him out. I think he's the better striker. And I'm actually a little bit surprised to see, let me see what the line is at this moment. But I do feel like Chris Curtis should be the favorite, honestly. I mean, I know he's thought of as a smaller middleweight, but I mean, frame-wise, I mean, he's not quite as big as Buckley. Buckley has more muscle on him. He's fucking jacked, but you know, I feel like Chris Curtis, his boxing's better. I don't think there's going to be a ton of grappling, and if there is, Chris Curtis hasn't been taken down in the UFC yet. His opponents are like 0 for like 32, 35 in takedowns. Now, has he fought the best of wrestlers? No, but he's fought some solid ones. And if they can't take him down, I don't know if you could be confident that Buckley will. I mean, Buckley could catch him, but I think there's a better chance if somebody gets knocked out, it's going to be Buckley. So I'm going to go Chris Curtis. I'm going to say he knocks Buckley out. And I would not be surprised, but I'm thinking a second-round knockout for Chris Curtis. I like him as an underdog. Pretty surprised that he is as big of an underdog as he is. But, I mean, it's not a huge underdog, but I just feel like he should genuinely be the favorite. I think that's a little bit of recency bias, even though Buckley's coming off a loss as well, and it wasn't a pretty loss. But, you know, I think people were ready to write Chris Curtis off. He's 35. He was on the win streak, but now he looked very human in his last fight, very beatable. But I still think he's the better fighter. Give me Chris Curtis by knockout, second round. Next up, we got Edmund Shabazian versus Delcha Lungmambula. Both guys on 3-fight losing streak. Both guys ready to get written off. Edmund was such a big prospect. People were talking about him being, you know, champion only a couple years ago. But he's had some tough competition, man. I mean, you look at this, like, fought Derek Brunson. I mean, they were trying to put him in the title mix there if he would have won that fight. Then he loses that, and they give him Jack Hermanson. Another guy who's super solid, especially for a guy who's going to be coming off a loss, is super young and green. And Jack Hermanson just did what he had to do, man. I mean, he's a big-ass middleweight, pretty solid striking, good grappling, and good gas tank. And it worked out for him. And then even Nasruddin Imavov, it's like, dude, that's a guy with a lot of potential. I mean, he's been looking really good. And, I mean, these last 3 wins were solid. Even the Phil Haas fight, that was super close. You could argue he won that fight. So those aren't bad losses at all. Meanwhile, Delcha Lungmambula, it's like, I mean, Marc-Andre Barrios a tough guy, but Cody Brundage and then getting knocked out by Soriano. Yeah, Soriano's got big power, but, you know, getting choked out in that Cody Brundage fight, completely gassing when you got him basically finished. That was a bad look, man, and much worse losses. Completely, you know, give you a pass on the Magomed Ankalaev fight. You know, somebody we'll be talking about in a bit, but you know, outside of that, I mean, he beat Daquan Townsend and Marcus Perez. I mean, not the biggest wins, and then the losses are much worse. I just feel like Edmund should be a big favorite in this fight. And I mean, he is, but, you know, I see why. I think he's much more skilled guy, much more left in the tank, 10 years younger. The UFC knows what they're doing. This is a bounce back fight. He should have got this 2 fights ago, honestly, after Brunson. He should have definitely got it a fight ago. I think he's finally getting it. I don't know why they were trying to build. They didn't want to give this type of fight, you know, 2 years ago, but it is what it is. I think he's going to bounce back, training at a better gym, 10 years younger, more in the tank, more skilled. I just think it's going to stay on the feet. Edmund's a better striker. He could knock him out in the first round, and I think he will. I think I'm going to take Edmund first-round knockout, but if it does extend, neither guy have great gas tanks, but I think Edmund has more in the tank than Delcha does. Give me Edmund first-round TKO to bounce back and keep his spot, because the loser of this fight might lose their job, especially if it's Delcha. Hate to say it. Just because he's 10 years older, he doesn't have, you know, the name that Edmund does, even though that has taken a hit over the last couple of years. But the golden boy to bounce back, first-round knockout, and let's move on. And here we go. Next up, we got Jarzania Rosenstruck taking on Chris Dawkins, a different Chris. Rosenstruck, never been a guy I've been high on. Big power, obviously. Just doesn't do enough, doesn't throw enough. I mean, he caught Sakai, who's so hittable, no head movement, no defense. He caught JDS, who's, you know, the chin is just taking so much damage lately. Even this Alistair fight, it's like, yeah, he destroyed Alistair's lip and face, but, like, there was 4 seconds left. Like, I don't know. I mean, he lost the whole fight. He landed a great punch. It is what it is. Chris Dawkins has been, you know, kind of a victim of, similar to Edmund. It's like, okay, he got knocked out by Derek Lewis, and then they're like, oh, here's Curtis Blades. And I know Curtis Blades isn't really known for a striker, like a big power guy on the feet, but, you know, I mean, he's a big-ass dude, and he's been, you know, fighting at the highest level for a long time. Chris Dawkins is a guy who could easily be fighting at 205. And now they're giving him another power puncher, but, you know, Chris Dawkins does throw a lot more, does do a lot more. I see why everybody I've seen is on Jarzania. Both guys have been on a rough patch. 2 guys in a row with power have caught Chris, and I mean, it does seem like this guy should be thinking about moving down to 205. But I can't help but just, I don't know, I've always been a little bit biased against Jarzania. I'm not a guy who likes to bet somebody who's going to stare at you and throw 5 strikes in a round and just wait to land that big bomb. It's a 3-round fight. I'm going to go with the guy who's going to do more. I know, you know, I really haven't been high on either of these guys, but especially, you know, on Jarzania. I just feel like he literally has to knock Chris out. So if you're going to bet him, just bet him by knockout. He doesn't throw but 15 strikes in a round. So if he doesn't knock Chris out, which definitely could happen, he's going to lose. So give me the dog, Chris Dawkins. Not a lot of dogs I like on this card, but he is one I do. You know, I get you. If you're betting Jarzania, I would just say bet him by knockout. But is that my first dog on the card? Favorite. That's even money. Favorite. I don't know. Chris Curtis, duh. It's just in my head, I'm just surprised that he's the underdog. Yeah, I mean, give me Chris Curtis and give me the even money Eric Silva, and then I'm gonna take a second dog on Chris Dawkins. Next up, we got Jay Perrin taking on Raul Rosas Jr. Raul Rosas Jr. That is 18 years old. You know the story. Contender Series, super young, a little goofy, but you know who cares as far as inside the cage. I mean, the guy's jiu-jitsu is very nice. He's slick and dangerous. Jay Perrin, you know, I think they're bringing him in thinking this is going to be an easier matchup. And if you're the UFC, you'd be stupid to not try to give Rosas some winnable fights. He's 18. He's not going to hit his prime for another, 9 years. Let him, you know, just try to... You want to give him fights where win or lose, he's not taking a lot of damage. If he loses, okay, who cares? He could potentially be fighting for 20 more years. I mean, Willie, not when you go to the UFC this early, you're not going to stay around that long. You're fighting at the highest level. They can only get you so many fights unless you win, lose. You put together 2-3 wins, they got to give you somebody legit. But I do think they're going to try to build him slow. The only thing is Jay Perrin's no complete pushover, man. I mean, I know some people are writing him off, and I get it. He hasn't been looking great. Losing, I mean, Mario Batista's a tough guy, but losing to Arichi Lang, that's not the best loss. But at the same time, you know, it's all about styles, and I do feel like Rosas has to get him down. We haven't seen this guy strike at all. And Jay Perrin probably going to have an advantage there. Give me 1 second. I don't want y'all to have to hear. I had to get that out. Blow my nose. I got a little bit of a cold, if you can't tell. So cheers. Let's dab it out since y'all had to deal with 5 seconds of silence. Cheers. Yeah. I don't think, you know, you got to be careful if you're parlaying Rosas. Jay Perrin, pretty solid takedown defense. And pretty solid, get-up game. and he's probably going to have the striking advantage. So, I do like Rosas to be able to, get a takedown or two. But, I don't know. I mean, Jay Perrin isn't a pushover, man. And I would not be surprised if maybe he gets taken down a couple times, but, eventually gets back to the feet, starts just landing the better shots. They said they're going to size up pretty well, it seems. We'll see. Man, honestly, I just feel like to bet an 18-year-old minus 230 or anywhere even minus 200, you got to be a little crazy, man. He's 18. He's a jiu-jitsu guy. I love jiu-jitsu. You know this. I'm a purple belt in jiu-jitsu. Been training jiu-jitsu damn near every day for the past almost 8 years. But, you got to have the wrestling. You got to have the takedowns. You got to have a little bit of striking. The fight starts on the feet. If you're not going to have any striking, which we don't know he has none, but we haven't seen that he has some, we don't know. It's just a question mark. I've seen Jay strike. It's not great, but on paper, I got to say he's got to have the advantage. I'm sure Rosas, he's only 18. He's got a lot of time, but dude, I got to go with another underdog. I didn't realize I actually do have a couple more underdogs than I realized. I'm going with Jay Perrin. I get it. There's a high probability that Rosas going to get to his back, either submit him or just be able to hold him there for 2 of the rounds. But just based off the number, that's crazy to me, honestly. I can't bet him. 18, look pretty one-dimensional from what we've seen on the tape. I got to go underdog again, Jay Perrin. Wow. I'm going to take Jay Perrin, win by decision. I'm going with 3 underdogs in a row. 3 of the last 4. I did take Edmund. But let's move on to the next fight, and it's my favorite fight on the card. Bryce Mitchell taking on Ilia Topuria. Both undefeated, both high-level prospects. Bryce Mitchell coming off that win over Edson Barbosa. Actually knocked Edson down on the feet and then just out-grappled him. Completely out-grappled Andre Fili. Okay, yeah, he completely out-grappled Charles Rosa. That one doesn't mean nearly as much to me. And before that, mostly lower-level guys. I mean, honestly, the Tyler Diamond win was pretty solid. Guys wrestling solid is very good, and his jiu-jitsu is very good as well. Topuria, the stronger guy, the more explosive guy, probably doesn't have quite the cardio that Mitchell does. He just carries a lot more muscle. Gonna have the more one-punch power for sure on the feet. And, just more explosive, powerful, strong, quick. But, the cardio, I don't know. I mean, he did have a nice little, I guess a bit of a comeback against Jai Herbert. And I know on paper it looks bad, and I've given some people that are like, oh, Topuria, easy next champ. It's like, slow down, man. He had enough trouble against Jai Herbert. But to be fair, Jai Herbert is a enormous of the division, especially going up in division like Topuria did. He was outsized, and the reach difference did seem to play a big factor, but he was able to eventually catch him with a big shot, put him out. Obviously put an absolute beating on Ryan Hall and Damon Jackson. The Zalal fight, I was on him heavy. I was on him heavy on the Damon Jackson and Ryan Hall. I made it a money on all his last 4 fights. The Jai Herbert fight, I was sweating the last time. But I did just realize, I bet him on all 4 of his UFC fights. And going into this fight, I get it on paper why he's the favorite. I do. I think he's going to have, like I said, more one-punch power. I think the striking's pretty close. Bryce Mitchell probably throws a little bit more. Topuria hits harder. It's close, man. It's all going to be about who can get that top position. If it plays out on the feet, I don't know. Bryce going to throw more. Topuria will land the bigger, more powerful shots. It's a close fight, man. It's honestly a very close fight. And, I've been a big fan of Topuria, and I bet on him every one of his fights. Bryce Mitchell, I've actually bet against a couple times. I bet against him in the Andre Fili fight. Just took Andre by decision at a nice line because I thought Fili would put up a better fight than that. Just with his volume, with it, his wrestling's not bad, but yeah, I was wrong in that one. This is a tough fight, man. It's very tough. I've been a little back and forth, and at the end of the day, I just feel like it should be 50-50. So again, man, it's kind of crazy. I didn't really realize, you know, I didn't really realize until right before this that I actually have a good amount of dogs on this card, because this just kind of plays out. It's not that I'm very confident in Bryce Mitchell. It's just, you know, again, I just feel like the line is off. The value's on Bryce Mitchell. It's going to be a close fight. It's a 50-50 fight. You know, I don't blame you if you pick Toporia, but I'm going to go with the underdog. I'm going to take Bryce Mitchell, man. I got a lot of underdogs on this card. I thought I only had like 2 or 3, and a lot of people seem to have different underdogs than I do, but you know, I do have Chris Curtis, Chris Dawkins, Jay Perrin, and Bryce Mitchell. I'm looking like a dog hunter on this card, but I swear, you know, typically, if anything, people will get on me for being chalky, but I really do feel like the underdogs could be barking this week. Going into this one, Darren Till, Dricus Duplessis. I do feel like this is one where, you know, maybe the UFC knows what they're doing, in the sense of this is a winnable fight for Darren, because his problem is, you know, I've always said he's a little overrated in my book. Again, he knocked my ass out. I don't want any trouble. You know what I mean? I'm just being real. You know, he caught a lot of his, you know, he beat and had a draw against Nicholas Dolby and some lower level guys, and then got all this notoriety from beating Donald Cerrone, who was massively undersized, damn near 40. And then he, in my eyes, I mean, not a robbery because it was close, but I thought Stephen Thompson won that fight, did more. He just got dropped at the end, and it gave the judges enough reason at home to give Till the win. But, you know, didn't land a significant strike against Tyron Woodley, just got absolutely destroyed. Jorge Masvidal knocks him out. Split decision with Kelvin Gastelum. And I actually bet to this is the one time I ever bet Till, and I was fucking sweating. I bet against him against Brunson. I bet heavy against him against Whitaker. I bet against him. Actually, no, I didn't bet the Masvidal fight, and I bet against him in the Woodley fight. So I've always bet against Till, and it's typically worked out for me. Oh, I should have muted it that time for you. I'm sorry, but I'm over here dying. Dricus is a guy who, you know, I mean, we have seen Till knocked out. Could Dricus knock him out? Yeah, he definitely could. He's very fucking unorthodox. He's like in a very different way, Yuri, in the sense of like explosive, hands down, wildly unorthodox fights, or I mean strikes, and big power. He could definitely knock Till out. He could also like mix in some takedowns. His wrestling's not terrible. It's not usually like his main path to victory. He wants to knock you out, but you know, I could see him landing a couple takedowns. Darren Till is training over there with Hamzat and some solid wrestlers, so maybe that's helped him. But you know, he's never had bad takedown defense. He just doesn't do a lot off his back once he gets taken down. I do feel like Dricus is gonna throw more, gonna do more. Till is just he doesn't throw enough. He's looking for that left hand. He's got a good roundhouse to the body with his left leg, straight left, the 1-2, and that's like about it. I mean, he's got some elbows. He doesn't really do much more than that. It's just like 1-2, roundhouse to the body, couple elbows. I mean, rinse and repeat. And you know, I do feel like Dricus just does more, throws more, and if it's close, the judges are gonna like that. They're gonna just say you outworked him. Till needs this win, man. You don't want to lose what? 5 of your last 6. I mean, that's tough. I mean, against a lot of tough guys, but at the same time, it's tough, especially when you're talking about being champ and stuff. But also, it's like the mental health issues, you know. I didn't want to get too heavy into this, but it seems like the dude's all over the place right now. You know, is he focused enough for this fight? I don't know. It's tough to say. Overall, I got to go with Dricus. Not a guy I've been super high on since he came, just because, you know, it just seems like eventually he's going to pay for this unorthodox striking and, you know, wild striking and just hands down and chin in the air, but it hasn't happened yet. And, you know, could Till, who's a good counter striker, be the guy to land this hard left hand and make Dricus pay for being so wild, it definitely could happen, but I'm going to lean Driscus to get it done. God, it could be a knockout, but I'm going to say by decision, just doing more, mixing a couple takedowns, and let's move on to the next fight. Short notice fight, Santiago Panzanibio taking on Alex Morono. Respect to Morono for stepping up. But I think this is a good fight for Santiago, man. I really do. I mean, Morono, actually, we'll say if we'll get into first. You know, he's been on a good streak. He's been looking good. But you got to look at against who. You know, Matt Simmelsberger, Mickey Gall, David Zawada, Donald Cerrone, Reese McKee. It's like, okay. I mean, also lost to Anthony Pettis in like 2020, so that's not great. Santiago Ponzinibbio, it's like, yeah, he's coming off a couple losses, but like Michel Pereira in a split decision, great fight, close fight, was coming on strong. Jeff Neal in another close fight, could have went either way. And the Leech, you know, caught him. He had been a 3-year layoff, and he fought a big power punching explosive guy like the Leech, caught him with a left hook. You know, I still think Ponzinibbio is the more skilled guy. I don't think Morono's going to be able to really take him down or really even go for a lot of wrestling. Both guys train at a good camp. You would think they'd be telling Morono to do a little bit of wrestling, but I don't think he will. I think he's going to play out on the feet. I think Ponzinibbio can mix in some good leg kicks. His boxing is pretty solid. As long as he can stay defensively sound, I do feel like he'll do more, throw more. And I'm going to take Ponzinibbio by decision. I think it's going to be a 3-round kickboxing match. It's going to be close. It's going to be competitive. Morono's no chump. He's a tough dude. And I get Ponzinibbio. People are kind of ready to write him off. 36, a lot of health problems. Coming off, 3 of his last 4 losses. But I think he's going to bounce back here, man. I think this is a little bit of a step down, respect to Alex, but it is. It's a step up for Alex. I think Santiago's going to look good here. Mix in his kicks. And I think he'll throw a little bit more volume than he has in the last couple fights. And I think he knows, man, he can't lose this fight. This is a must-win for him. Or, I don't know if he'll lose his job, but, if he wants to, let alone have a title shot in the end, even just, make some money and fight some of these top guys like I know he wants to, he needs to win this fight. So give me Santiago Ponzinibbio by decision, and let's get into the co-main event. We got Patty the Batty Pimblett, minus 245. I mean, it's kind of crazy because Jared Gordon, we'll get into first. His problem has been his chin. He's got good wrestling, pretty solid striking, nothing crazy, nothing great, but he's a grinder. He's tough. He'll keep pushing the pace. His problem has just been that chin, man. He got caught by Grant Dawson, clipped with some big shots, eventually gave up his back. He got caught and knocked out by Charles Oliveira. He got caught and knocked out by Joaquim Silva and Diego Ferreira and Jeff Lentz. Even in his amateur days, you've seen him get stunned by shots a lot. Patty does throw. Is his striking great? No. His defense is bad. His chin is in the air. His hands are down. He just wings shots. But, you got to respect the takedown. And, you got to respect his grappling in general. And, because of that, it opens up some shots. And he does throw. He's not afraid to throw. He's not afraid to brawl. I think that he's going to pay for that eventually. But is this the fight to do it? I've taken some dogs in this fight, but I honestly feel like I got to lean with the favorite in this one. The value all day is on Jared Gordon. If I'm betting this fight, I'm taking Jared Gordon. I'm probably taking Jared Gordon by decision or just taking him straight. I might even end up with some money on him because I'm thinking that line's only going to get worse. And, where is it at this very moment? Patty Pimblett, minus 250, minus 275 on some books. That's wild to me. Minus 275. That's probably going to keep going. Yeah, man. I might end up with a little something on Jared Gordon right before fight time if that line keeps going. I do think Patty Pimblett probably can, catch him with a good shot. Maybe club and sub. Maybe just put him out. It's very possible, but, Jared Gordon's a tough guy, man. This is a step up. And, he does present some problems. His wrestling isn't, he's not going to be easy to take down. He could take Patty down. We've seen Patty taken down by lesser wrestlers than Jared. But overall, I will pick Patty. I will pick him by knockout. I'm going to say he does clip him and either finish him with some ground and pound or is able to put him completely out. But you would never catch me betting minus 250, almost minus 300 in this fight. I might end up with some Jared Gordon, but where I did take some underdogs earlier and maybe the line played a factor, I did also feel like they genuinely are going to win the fight, or at least it's like 50-50, like a straight-up coin toss. This one I do think I'll give the edge to Patty, but I'm rooting for Jared. I'm sorry. Patty, you know, before at least I was like, okay, not really for me, but, you know, getting headlines, just trying to make money, this and that, okay. But now, I'm sorry, but he's been looking a little scummy lately. I just don't agree with it, and we won't get all into that now. But I'm not going to lie, maybe I'm a little biased, but I am picking him. I'm picking him. Picking him to win. I just think the value's on Jared. Main event time. Light heavyweight championship. And if you guys have been watching my show, watching this, my podcast, I should say, you know, my breakdowns for the past 3 years, you know how I feel about Magomed. I've been saying since I started this that he's the best 205er in the world. Now, is this how I thought he was going to eventually get the title shot? No, but, you know, it's kind of surprising that the UFC were so pressed to make this matchup, you know. It was supposed to be Glover and Yuri. Yuri was the champ. He has to vacate the belt. So then it was going to be Glover and Ankalaev. Glover just wanted a couple extra weeks. It's a different stance, completely different style. I just want a couple extra weeks to fight for a title. It's going to be my last chance. If I lose, I'm never getting another shot. He's like 42. Very understanding. It's not like he said, no, I'm not fighting Ankalaev. He just said, give me 3 more weeks. I just need to prepare. If I lose, you're going to shove me to the end of the pile. So I totally understand it. I'm surprised they weren't cool with making that Jan and Glover fight like Glover wanted, because, you know, it's a rematch. It's bigger names. Magomed's not a bigger name, but it seemed like the UFC really, for some reason, maybe they just know, they're like, this is the best guy. We're just going to start this train of building Magomed because, you know, I do feel like he is the best 205er in the world. He's so defensively sound, the best defense in the division. Now his one loss is a triangle choke to Paul Craig. Now, yeah, the guy with the best triangle in the division, but, you know, it's just crazy when you see that with 1 second left. Now, was that a Russian, you know, a fixing? It's very possible. A lot of people want to write that off, dude. It is possible. Either that or you need to fire your cornerman, because to not say 3 seconds, do not tap. It's a triangle. It's not like an arm bar, you're going to break your arm. I've been in 1,000 triangles. You know, worst case scenario, you'll go to sleep. Absolute worst case scenario. I get Paul Craig's triangle probably doesn't feel great, but, you know, to tap with 1 second left, a little sketchy. But other than that, he's been nearly perfect. I mean, even when he gets caught with a shot, you see the guy can take a punch. He's got a good chin, but typically he's not getting caught with big shots. His defense is always sound. He's got offensive wrestling. He's got takedown defense. He's got power in his hands. Crispy technical striking with good kicks. Jan Blachowicz, I feel like he's got him beat everywhere except power. Jan's got to have that Polish power, but, you know, this is 205ers, and Ankalaev's got plenty of power to put you out if he hits you in the right spot. Blachowicz is always a live dog because, yeah, I mean, you don't want to sleep on this guy, man. I mean, you don't want to sleep on him. People slept on him against Izzy. They slept on him against Rakic, but, I mean, that one wasn't really real. They slept on him against Reyes. A lot of people slept on him against Corey because he had lost to Corey. He got grinded out, but, you know, Jan, I don't think it's going to be a ton of grappling. I think Magomed isn't going to grapple too much. I think it's going to play out mostly on the feet. I think he's a more technical, crisper striker, but Jan could always land one of those big shots. He got nasty kicks to the body like he did to Dom Reyes. He's got a disgusting power in his left hand, and it could go either way. And his right hand, really both. But, I mean, that shot he landed on Luke Rockhold, man, jeez. But, you know, I'm going to take Ankalaev, the more technical guy, the more past the victory, the best 205er in the world in my eyes, another Russian champion. But, you know, don't sleep on Blachowicz. I think he could do it, but, you know, he is 39. Ankalaev still got a long time. I mean, this is 205 too. I mean, he's young for the division. And I think he's the best 205er in the world. So I think while I feel sad for Glover, while the whole situation isn't how I wanted it to go, I do think the best 205er in the world is going to get that belt. And I hope they give Glover a chance at it. But we'll see how it all plays out. I'm going to go Ankalaev. I'm going to go Ankalaev by decision. He doesn't take a lot of risks. That is the one drawback. But, you know, could he finish him? Yes, but Jan's so tough. I feel like, I mean, maybe he could submit him on the ground, but we just haven't really seen a huge submission threat from Ankalaev. I'm sure he's got it. He just doesn't take a lot of risks, man. He wants to win. He just wants to keep winning. You can't blame the guy, especially when you're not going to talk shit and be some big name. So you just got to win, because if you lose, they're going to be ready to throw you down to the end of the line. I'm going to take Ankalaev, decision. I got Paddy Pimblett, knockout. Santiago Panzanibio, decision. Driscus, decision. Bryce Mitchell, decision. I know it's going to surprise a lot of people. Jay Perrin, decision. That one's going to surprise people. Chris Dawkins, decision. That's definitely going to surprise people. Edmund Shabazian, this one shouldn't. By knockout. Chris Curtis by knockout. Might surprise some, apparently. Billy Cornell. I'm going to take him by decision. Eric Silva, submission. Vincius Salvador, first round knockout. Cameron Simon, decision. Actually, I might say by knockout in that one. I'm torn between decision and knockout. I'm going to stick with my knockout pick. That's it for my picks. I'll do a short video shortly before the card, saying my bets, just quick 5-minute vid showing how I decide to play these. But those are my picks. Those are my leans and full card betting breakdown. Hope you enjoyed it. Let's win some money. Good luck. Enjoy the fights, and I will see you for the next one. Might be a little bit. We're going to see. I'm waiting for the UFC to be like, JK, here's another card. But we'll see. Enjoy the fights. Make some money. Come through on Twitch. I will be live as always. Link is in the caption below. Enjoy. Peace.